Welcome to week 2 of Public Service Consulting Practicum. This week we are reading chapter 5 in the textbook. You should have already met with your client and asked them the questions from chapter 3. This week we will be using the answers to these questions to finalize your consulting proposal. We will have phone calls this week. Call me at 760-608-1601 at the time you selected last week. Please make sure you text or email me if you cannot make the selected time. Let's take a couple of minutes to talk about Chapter 5 of our textbook. Chapter 5 is about the second C, which is clarify. The process described in this stage of the 7 C's model follows the pattern of 9 elements: situation blindness, diagnosis, phase mapping, shadow dancing, culture, decision makers, system construction, stakeholders, and life cycle risk. Now I will go over each of these 9 elements in detail. Number 1 is situation blindness. It can often be hard to get to the real issue or the heart of the problem because people operate in a semi-delusionary state where they fail to see, understand, or accept what the world is really like. So there's 5 levels. Level 1 is no problem recognized. Level 2, the problem recognized but not deemed to be important. Level 3, it's important, but there are no solutions. Level 4, solutions possible, but don't know how or don't want to do it. And then level 5 is a clarity of the situation and willingness to address. There are techniques for shifting between levels. There's the hook, there's the push, there's repetition and playback, and there's reverse. And number 2 is diagnosis. Gather information that will help determine the real source of the issue and not just tackle the symptoms. So there's a couple of methods for diagnosis. First is outside in, and the other is inside out. There's 5 sets of data. The root: is it possible to carry out an audit to identify the original source of the problem? In the case of an industrial action in a small manufacturing company, it might be changes in pay rates, poor industrial relations, or a change in government policy. The result: what is the true impact of the issue? Is it something that affects the whole organization, one particular group, or is it something that causes the problem for one product area? Whatever the breakdown, you can collect firm and valid data that describes the impact of the issue is having. The data must indicate what is really happening rather than what the client or customer believes is happening. Responsible: whatever the problem, someone somewhere must have allowed it to happen. This permission might have been given explicitly, the managing director deciding to reduce the organization's cost base by running a re-engineering program. Alternatively, it may have been given implicitly, a parent leaving too many suites around the house, thus tempting a child. Resistance: there is often a temptation to ignore an issue in hope that it will disappear once the problem has been resolved. However, there can be data elements within this area that might be of interest to you. Consider the resistance that might arise if a company announces plans to change its policy on existing company telephones for private calls. The level of any opposition to such a change can indicate a number of important factors, such as the strength of the culture, the extent to which people are prepared to accept centralized decisions, and the capability for people to form a coordinated counterattacks to any opposed change. The ripple effect. The first 4 data elements are visible. You can readily be measured and mapped. But with any issue, there is an intangible radiation or energy emitted as change ripples throughout the organization. This is the anger and emotion that surround a downsizing exercise or the excitement released by an impending global merger. This radiated energy must be understood, since it is often contain the power to amplify or attenuate the change process associated with any consultancy project. Number 3, phase mapping. Determine the extent to which the known and unknown factors within the change process will affect its potential for success. Shadow dancing. Determine the extent to which unspoken activities and arrangements will affect the situation. Culture. Understand the cultural factors that affect the change process. Decision makers. Be clear about who is actually making the decisions as opposed to who says they are. System construction. Understand the structure of the organizational system and how it is likely to react to any changes. Stakeholders. Develop a map that indicates who can influence the outcome of the change and to what extent they have the capability and desire to wield their power. Life cycle risk. Gauge the level of risk associated with the project. All 9 of these elements are part of the second C, clarify.